Hello, everyone. We started the recording already.
I believe we frame that as ooh, ah.
Okay, we're already 11 people, 3 minutes in, so I think we can start. Last time we reviewed the Ansible part a bit, and Dan's document. I see that there are already 2 new PRs to update Dan's, not from NVIDIA. We still are reviewing it internally a bit. It actually raises some questions internally, things we need to close on. So I hope we'll have a final update next week. And we have here Jose from NVIDIA. Jose wrote an Ansible collection using Redfish for DPU provisioning, which we currently maintained internally, but we would love to contribute to OPI, and to give us an overview of what he did and why, of course. So if that's okay with everyone, I would love for us to start with a review of the Ansible that Jose wrote, and afterwards progress to taking a look at the new suggestions to Dan's document. Okay, take your silence as a yes. So Jose, you want to introduce yourself?
Let me see if I can share. I'm trying to find out where I have the share screen. Okay. Just share the screen over here. Share. This one.
You are sharing your Outlook.
I'm sharing that. Okay.
Yeah.
So just a rollback, right? I mean, so Bluefields have all Bluefield 3s and many Bluefield 2s have a BMC. And on Bluefield 2s, we actually started by supporting IPMI. Bluefield 3s all support Redfish. We are actually converting as well the Bluefield 2s to actually support Redfish as well. So we actually like wrote, and I'm sharing here, is a public document, is a guide, basically, right? I mean, that shows how you would actually do the operations. I mean, particularly, we actually need to convert all the previous cards, right? I mean, and then keep them upgrading. So this document will show you, right, a typical flow, right? I mean, that we actually have and we recommend to actually do all the management of the DPUs using BMCs, using Redfish from the network side. And we can actually follow it, right? I mean, and go a little bit more on details. You would see the document mainly actually refers about using curl commands, right? Rather than going directly to Redfish itself, right? I mean, but would have the Redfish setup as well. And it actually goes, right? I mean, through all the steps that we actually have. Some of the steps are general, but there are some things that are very specific for us, right? I mean, for example, our like DPUs can be, right? I mean, running in like DPU mode, or it can be running like a NIC, right? I mean, like connect-X as well. So there are things like we actually have to support, right? I mean, to enable that kind of like configuration on the particularly switching of the modes. So that's basically, right, I mean, what the hardware has. There is, right, I mean, also another document that we actually have that would actually like show all the different like capabilities that we actually support either with Redfish and with IPMI as well. And we can look at this one over here, but things about managing, right, I mean, users. For example, here, right, I mean, DPU monitoring, right, I mean, is not referred, but you can get using Redfish the power consumption of a DPU if you actually want. You cannot get the fan speed because really, right, I mean, there are no fans basically like on the thing. So there are things that are not documented that are implemented as well. Things that are not even here, but we actually support, for example, actually like getting logs as well, right? I mean, so we can get all the logs from both the DPU side or from the BMC and actually process them as well on that setup. So that would give you kind of a high level idea of all the different kind of like operations that we actually have on the hardware side and the support of Redfish. Questions so far?
Yeah. Question. When you say all BlueField-3s have BMCs, do you just mean BMC port, or is that BMC an actual SoC that's separate from the main processor?
So all the BlueField-3s have a single RJ45, right? I mean, and that one would actually like go and connect to the IP of the BMC. So the BMC has the card BMC, right? I mean, has an IP address which is on user and its own version and its own password.
Julia is asking that BMC, yes, Julia, BMC is a discrete component that is not part of the SoC. It's an AST separate chip with the CSC for security, which is separate from a BlueField-3 chip. Two different chips.
Okay, because the reason I ask is because I've encountered cases where it looks like the main OS that gets flashed has an IPMI simulator loaded up, and it exposes the BMC's network port to the main cores, which seems wrong. And then looking at delineation of the documentation, it looks like there's a variation in the hardware that's available based upon intermediate vendors.
Yeah, for NVIDIA, this is two separate chips with a 3-port switch in order to do the 1 gig networking management between them.
Okay. So obviously, right, I mean, when we were doing development and we're writing the documentation, right, I mean, we didn't want to do all the copy and paste, right, I mean, that you would typically see here, right? I mean, so we actually look and actually like looking at managing all the blue fields with Redfish. And we look at the community packages, right? I mean, I think you are all familiar, right? I mean, you have like the Redfish info module, sorry, just got a little bit on here. Then you have also the command module. It was also, right, I mean, the config module that you actually have on the community side. And also, right, I mean, we look at what other vendors actually have, right? I mean, so you would see that Dell has, right, I mean, the Redfish and Stream modules, right? I mean, but they would actually have like the community and some extensions basically for iDRAC. HP also has, right, I mean, the community modules and then some ILO configs that you actually have on that particular side. Now, when we look at the documentation and we look at the Ansible playbooks, the impression that we got is, first of all, it was too chatty. Essentially, right, I mean, that you have, right, I mean, kind of like one command to get the category, right, I mean, and find out what's your system ID, Bluefield in our case. Then when you want to do a post, you would actually do first a get, right, I mean, to verify that the link is valid, and then you would actually do the post. Allows you to actually combine multiple commands, multiple Redfish commands into like just one operation. And from what we actually had, right, I mean, most of our operations were just a single Redfish command, and then probably wait until that completes, for example, a firmware update or a BMC update or a big image, system image update. So we look at that one. We felt, and at that point we're actually debugging, right? I mean, we're actually like trying to like find out the problems, write documentations, write the right sequence of steps. So it kind of like all that complexity at that point, I think it hid, right? I mean, what we wanted to do. So what I did is really like fundamentally starting, right? I mean, from the community utils, and then also getting a streamlined or a simple version, basically, right, I mean, of that particular commands that we actually want.
Is this, excuse me, sorry, is this a public URL that's accessible?
This is internal. So we
Okay,
have
so I can't be looking at the screen then.
Okay. So let me just stop sharing the screen on the things over there, just to give you the idea of that kind of things. So that is what it is. It's really, right, I mean, a simple version of the community setups that allows you to actually like manage it and do a one-to-one mapping, right? I mean, from what is in the documentation. And actually, I see that there is one step design documentation would be just one step writing into the Ansible playbook. That's fundamentally what those kind of like steps it is, right? I mean,
but basically, Jose, you just developed the custom modules, and then on top of those, we can start building roles and playbooks. And this is how we want to build the entire collection, right?
Correct.
That's the idea.
Exactly. So first of all, I mean, streamline a little bit, right? I mean, that's was part of the process, and then find out what were the new operations that we need to support that we actually like have. Also, we actually run all the community playbooks against our like Bluefields. We find out all the places where we are missing some of the commands that we need, or that we return the value and basically we turn an empty list, for example, right? I mean, in some commands because we don't support, right? I mean, funds, right? I mean, or things like that. So we actually have that kind of things. We actually wanted to stay very close as well to the community, because we might consider that moving forward, we would actually like want to extend, right? I mean, and actually like work more closely with the community playbooks rather than that with that internal playbooks that we actually have. Thing that for us, this playbooks that I'm describing you is a very thin layer, very simple layer on top of the documentation. Actually, we use the playbooks to write the documentation. So I think it's more like for us, more like an extension to the documentation. So the user would not need to actually go and copy and paste from all these web pages that show how to do these car commands.
But the community, correct me if I'm wrong, the community doesn't have any roles or playbooks. Community have also only developed the collection of modules that we can use.
Correct. So the community has modules that would say, right, I mean, get version, right, I mean, of a particular component kind of things.
Yes.
So and that implements all the Redfish operations, like the read, I mean, do the HTTP get, right, I mean, and get back the reply and getting all the things over there. Writing a playbook around it, right? I mean, writing a YAML that puts it into a sequence is not that difficult, right? I mean, it depends on you what you want to do, right? I mean, on that operation. So really, what the community has, so what the community has is these verbs, right? I mean, the verbs would be like get the CPU inventory, and then this is an example of a playbook, right? I mean, that would go through the steps.
Yeah, but for example, when I started to write this role, probably you saw this pull request. When I started to write the role against Bluefield 3 for BMC firmware update.
Mhm.
So when I started to write this role, it's basically the BMC firmware update has a lot of steps, right, that we need to do.
Correct. So we can look at here. Right?
So this is what I'm looking for right now is basically, yeah, let's say for the sake of the argument, I feel comfortable with starting with community general Redfish collection.
Correct.
We can then easily replace it with either a new version of it or customize or optimize modules. That's totally fine. But
Correct.
for me, the missing part is to start creating as much as possible of those roles is basically to get firmware update, download the image from the NVIDIA website, push it with a multi-part HTTP push, then wait for the task operation in the loop to task to be completed, reboot optionally the BMC, get the firmware update, and verify that the version was actually successful. And this is the example how we're using the NVIDIA website's URL to actually accomplish this. So for me, if we put the modules aside just for a second and using the community general, what I would like to do is to ramp up on as much as possible of those roles so we can then create a example playbook like I did here with just, update BFF firmware that run all the roles here. And then replay them across Intel, NVIDIA, and Marvell, and AMD Pensando as well, and see that everything is running correctly. Then we'll find what things are a little bit different. So I would like to put switch cases, ifs, and changes in the existing roles so they can be really common across vendors. But my biggest problem currently is we don't have any roles developed, even based on community general. I'm fine with replacing the community general afterwards with something more optimized. But for me, we need to bootstrap this as soon as possible. And I would really love your help getting this at least started. At least with the list of what are the basic roles that we want to develop. For me, it's, the one-time BMC password change, firmware update of the BMC, reset of the BMC, factory reset, time synchronization, and obviously the big one is OS booting.
Yeah, so if you look at the documentation, right? I mean, we actually describe the one I actually gave you before. We actually describe those particular steps. And for example, right? I mean, pushing a BMC image, right? I mean, or pushing the root of trust is really a put, right? I mean, it's really just pushing the image, right? I mean, it's not even a multi-step. Pushing
pushing is not enough. Pushing will create
you also need to download it at the beginning and wait for it.
First you need to download it, then you need to push it, then you create it.
Afterwards you need to verify.
You need to check it. Yeah, and then verify.
Correct. Now the thing is, when you actually look at the BFB, that's the putting a new OS, right? I mean, and putting the whole large image. That in our current steps is really upside down, right? I mean, so we really say over Redfish.
That's why let's put BFB aside. Let's focus on the BMC firmware update first.
Correct.
Because that's easy. The OS load is always very hard.
Correct. So that one, I mean, in the playbook, right? I mean, that I actually have, I have a role that essentially says let's see what it is supposed to be put on that, and then put the image, right? I mean, on the on the server. Now, when we actually get as output of Redfish of putting a BMC or a ROT, you actually get a task ID. And part of the job that you have is you need to keep on polling, right? I mean, to verify that these have completed. So you actually keep on checking, doing gets.
Yeah, this is what I'm doing in my example. Yes.
Correct. So you need, so only then, right? I mean, that you can proceed to the next step, right? I mean, because we have actually put all the update have completed basically, right? I mean, it needs to actually put it into that particular setup. So really,
I'm with you, but I'm looking for actually bootstrap this and start contributing. Can you help us contributing the new roles that you created using only Redfish to this repository?
I mean, that's something that definitely there is nothing let me put it this way, nothing that I show or actually have over there is out of what it is in the documentation. So really, it's just you look at the documentation, you just can follow it exactly what it is on the thing. So there is nothing that is confidential, right? I mean, on that setup. And yes, I mean, the whole idea from Gal is to actually start contributing some of these setups as well on those roles. I mean, really, right? I mean, there is nothing.
So my concrete proposal, I understand the document, I read all of this, I understand all this. My concrete proposal is, if we can together on this group come up with, first of all, a list of roles that we want to develop.
Correct.
Then we can split and divide what you're doing, what I'm doing, what the other people that want to contribute is doing, right? And then we start creating pull request, review it together, publish the collection on the Galaxy, and start using it, start testing it in our labs, and see what differences we get. But that's my kind of immediate task is, let's get the list going of all the collections, all the roles that we want to write, split the work, and start doing the code reviews. For example, this pull request that I posted, feel free to go and comment, and let's make it the best role that we can write.
Okay.
Yeah, so as Jose started, he's going to help and contribute to the repo. It's okay to start with the community Ansible. Sure, I mean, it's not really different from what Jose wrote internally. That just means that later on we will need to migrate, probably.
Either migrate or already started a conversation with the community general people who are maintaining the Redfish to start maybe taking our requirements that what is not working correctly and start maybe optimizing the existing community general code as well. So we'll see what route we take. Yeah, go.
So I do have the list of commands that we need to actually support the end-to-end provisioning, upgrading, and maintaining all the things internally on our side. There are some things that I think are very specific to us, basically, right? I mean, but there are things that are fairly general, right? I mean, the operations that you have, like, is I mean, traditional inventory kind of things, update the BMC, and for us, update the KEK, right? I mean, the secure root as well. We have some issue with the managing of the keys. And then we have this BMC
account,
that we need to
account
do.
changes.
Yeah. Come, say it again.
Account changes for the root password change for the first time. Then we need the log downloads, all of that. So yeah, let's put up together a list of things, split it up, and start working on this.
Okay.
So one thing about that, this is like an open question of how we want to develop the roles. So reviewing your role, Boris, it is downloading the firmware, updating it, and then verifying it at the end, all three. I am thinking to myself, if we want to break it down into smaller chunks and combining it in a playbook. So for example, a user will be able to skip the download if you have the image locally, or do we want to keep it as one large role to do the entire operation?
I'm all forward for the iterative approach. We can have, the most important thing is to have all the roles written. Then we can figure out what is reusable and then break it out to smaller roles and then use them and so on and so forth. So for me, it's not really important. For me, that spending more time on the initial kind of designs in this specific case, maybe it's not that important. For example, I already received a couple of reviews on this specific role that BMC reboot probably should be a separate role because other roles will want to use it, and then we can hook it up between the roles to actually call one role to each other. Then effects gathering always, or usually effect gathering is a separate role, just to get all the firmware inventory, do the registers in order to do the effect gathering as a separate role. So yeah, absolutely. The question, if we're doing it with a single pull request and then split it up, it's not that important. For me, the most important part is we have all the roles that running across all three DPU vendors, and then we can, improve it as we go. It's not a one done project. It will be ongoing. But having more code up and running, having a collection out there, having people start using it. I think that will be the most important. And then customer will also help us drive the right requirements.
Okay, so let's start with the roles that you have and go over them one by one. So changing the BMC password, I think it's all agreed that
Separate roles. Yeah.
we have to have it. I mean, we can do anything before we started doing that.
Yep.
If we are talking about changing password, we also have changing the UEFI password.
Would leave it for later. Let's start with the BMC only first.
Oh, if we are collecting the roles, I'm not putting priorities on them. I'm just.
I'm with you.
I mean, whoever wants to take it, let's take it. I'll even open a separate issue on each of them, so it will be easier to track.
Yeah. We can assign.
So okay, I don't know if that works for other vendors. We have a thing called secure boot setting, which is very common to enable or disable it. Is that something we want to develop here in the collection?
This is my initial suggestion, Gal, on the overall roles that I put it here that I found common across all the vendors initially. So we can start maybe with this list.
Sure,
Change
no
BMC
problem.
password, update BMC firmware, reset BMC, factory reset BMC, time synchronization, change CPU boot order. We need that for the PXE booting. Time synchronization on CPU. I'm not sure if it can be done or not. And then OS booting, obviously.
Time sync, it is a question. I'm not sure how can it be done via Redfish, if.
Yeah, the BMC easily. It's already supported today. This one I don't know. But then OS boot, and we'll want to support here several options. So one is network boot, obviously. This is my initial list. Yeah.
Changing boot order. Okay.
So a few things I can tell you, right? I mean, what I actually found on our side, Boris, right? I mean, that's important.
Yeah.
So let's leave the if you don't mind, leave the list. I actually can get you on that. So we actually wanted to have like root, not just changing the root password. Yes, the first use root that you want to do it, but we also wanted to have user management as well. We actually do some upgrades, for example, not with a by root, but really with a different kind of role. So we actually have like a particularly second set of rules. The second thing is when we update the BMC, we also update the secure root. So it's really like two images that we actually put on the sides, not just a single image on our side. We do restart or reboot, basically, right? I mean, the BMC after that to verify that the BMC is actually correct, and we actually get inventory as well for all the different kind of components. We also need to actually do operations on the server, right? I mean, not on the Bluefield BMC, but on the platform BMC to actually like, for example, like power cycle or do a cold boot as well in some cases. We do.
But remember, Jose, two things. First of all, is we have to build first of all the MVP. Yeah. So only the minimum amount of commands at the most common across the vendors.
Correct. Okay. So I'll tell you what are the things.
So the entire user management, for example, we eventually will do it, but I want to first to get things going. So I want at least just to.
I would tell you these are things that cause us pain, right? I mean, because somebody is actually like trying to do like checking on the root user on the accounts, but you get things. We do have the task, right? I mean, for us, important, the procedure is really, having to do the wait, right? I mean, on the task. And so typically the output of like booting a BMC, right? I mean, pushing a BMC is to actually like wait and time out and wait if something fails. So really the error paths are particularly important on our side as well. So it's really like, think that pushing a BMC image is pushing the BMC image, getting the task ID, and then waiting on the task ID. So all the task management is particularly important on our side as well. It can be hidden. It can actually be done in a more complex operation that does both the push and the wait, basically. But we do wait on the playbook outside. The other thing that we are missing there that's important is all the logs. Collecting all the logs information is also, right? I mean, something that we actually need to actually rely and get it as well from the BMC. So these are giving you, and then we do have like UFI management. So really, right, I mean, we do a lot of like operations of changing the modes of exposing the UFI variables through Redfish to actually be able to get what are the values of the configuration of that particular like DPU or that server, and then modifying it too. So those are things that I think were important on our side.
Excellent. I'm with you.
Okay.
So if you have many of these roles already written for NVIDIA, so let's start contributing those to this repo.
Sure. I mean,
Let's
this
fix
Yeah, the only thing we need
CI/CD.
to do is to change from the library that we developed to the community one, but just I think that it's
they're
almost
fairly-
transparent to you, right?
Yeah, they're very similar. I mean, the lower things are fairly much the same. And really, right, I mean, we are not going to be running two Redfish commands into like just one step as it is being done today. Gal, we would just do it, right? I mean, we always would do it just one by one, but I mean, just like right? I mean, like that's not going to affect us. Okay.
Also, again, you're probably very familiar with Ansible and all the CI/CD automation. So I put a lot of the CI/CD automation with linters and everything. So most of this and unit testing. So we need the ecosystem around this repo as well. So most of them are failing right now. So again, part of the work is going to be to fix all of those.
Yeah, and we are also, right, I mean, not being, particularly when we were doing development on this one, we were not very aggressive on timings. So we have like some weights, right? I mean, because we didn't want to actually like just, flood as fast as possible. I mean, right now we can actually like, put it more pressure on our cards. Yep.
Okay, so Jose is going to start contributing his existing roles, and we already have a development team internally that is that we are trying to open some tasks for the near future. The problem is that at the end of the day, they have existing commitments, but we are trying to shuffle it a bit to help them contribute as well. So the list of roles you've added, Boris, yeah, I think it's more than fine to start with them, but we also have basically the table of commands that Jose showed us before with Redfish.
I'm
which I
working
think
through the table. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm working through
I think we just want to implement as much as we can from there, and
Of course.
it's not a matter of priority.
On my perspective, I want just two areas to help with. First of all, I understand teams are busy, but at least the pull request that I create, I want Jose at least to look at and comment and review. That's number one. Second of all, if you and Jose, if you already know what roles you wanted to contribute, so to avoid duplication of work, like create an issue, assign it to yourself, so I'm not working on the same stuff that you already thinking to contribute. So I don't want us to duplicate and work on the same stuff. That's my second list.
Thank you. I'll do just that.
Yeah.
Okay. So for Ansible, I think we are good. Conclude that we are starting with the community Redfish. Later on, we'll migrate if needed. And we will open an issue for each role that we want to implement and assign it or unassign it, basically. Perfect. So unless anyone has anything else on Ansible, let's move to Denz. Emma?
Thank you very much, Gal and Jose, for presenting this. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so then you added an update to your README file, basically, and we also got an update from ARM, I see.
Yep. So here I can just share the goings on here. Just pull it up. Yeah. So there it is. Oh, I have to share. Hold on a second. The ARM changes are pretty reasonable. I already approved them, So they're ready to be merged. If you want to look at the changes here, you can see that what they did was they changed some of the call outs to particular versions and changed some of the language. This line 18 is optional. So yeah, these changes look good to me. Any other comments? Did I already approve this? So that's these changes here.
It's mostly terminology.
Yeah. Just better wording, I would say. Yeah.
Mhm.
And yeah, and this original wording I took directly from the other page that they had. So I think it makes sense. And then my changes here is also wording, but also a proposal on how to do the identification, which I know we've spun around a little bit here. Is I reworded it here to say, hey, we're going to use PLDM for 3 specific things. We use PLDM to get the temperature, to get the power, so that the BMC can adjust the fans so the card doesn't melt, and the ability to get the identification. And our proposal here is to use this new file transfer spec that's coming imminently here. It allows over PLDM to allow the device to be able to have file transfer. So we could have the BMC go and read out the file and get the identifying information that we want to provide. We can provide like the QR code from the device for that being used for STTP. We can do a lot of stuff here. Keep it really simple with a file to be able to, because there's really not a great existing structure in PLDM for ID. So we could do the QR code, or we could do the fru. We could do as little or as much as we think is reasonable. I think enough cookies to figure out what kind of device it is. I don't think we need more than one or two. And the file mechanism is fairly simple. And within OPI here, we could define what our file format is and take that back to the DMTF if we get good agreement on it. So that's the change that I made. Patrick Kutch, who's attending today, this was his proposal, and wanted to float it here in this PR.
Okay. So I guess for the ARM part, it's, as you said, mostly straightforward. But the second one, I think we will want to review internally before we approve it. Baha, do you have anything to add to that, or do you prefer us to check internally before?
Let's check it internally.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the reason why we're picking PLDM versus like NCSI or something like that is these DPU IPUs, they can be anything. They could be entirely just a NIC card, in which case NCSI would work great, or they could be just a bunch of disks, virtual disks, in which case NCSI doesn't apply. They could be an accelerator card that does something arbitrary. So the PLDM is the lowest common denominator here, and it gives us, we only want 3 things, and 2 out of the 3 are perfectly specced out the way we need them. It's the third one that we're trying to get at, and the third one is probably the most important. let's say you you aren't there in front of the machine to get the QR code for SCTP. Might be nice to be able to get that from the BMC, or if it got lost, or someone swapped out your card for you, you know, RMA or whatnot. It would be really important to be able to have that programmatic identification available. And we can certainly make this available to the on the AMC on the adapter as well to get that, grab out the same file. We can also tie this into SPDM if you wanted to, so you can get the same information that you would get out of SPDM in terms of attestation from this file, because that's again, it's another clear text piece of information. So the ID here is not the crypto bits, right? So it's on the clear text side of things.
Is it an information that can be retrieved via PLDM that provide the full information?
It could, but we didn't think that the PLDM through worked. Or Patrick, what do you think about that question?
I haven't investigated anything specific with PLDM because we're just talking about this QR code. I can dig into that as well.
See if you can just get the free, if there's a free standard in PLDM.
I think there is, but I'll have to go look. I haven't looked at that part of the spec in a long time.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I think where we started here was Fru is very useful. It'll tell you what kind of card it is, but it doesn't solve the QR code problem that that we have. I mean, maybe once you have the Fru, you can go and contact your manufacturer to get the QR code.
You have the manufacturing model, the platform, and identification number. So is it what you mean when you are saying QR code? Like the manufacturing identifier?
No, the QR code would be what we use in SCTP to be able to go and download the right artifacts for this card.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it is likely a mapping from the serial number from the Fru to that QR code number, but you couldn't use the Fru to kick off the SCTP. There's probably another step you have to take.
Think it was like a GUID, right? A big giant,
Yep.
256 byte GUID or something like that. That's absolutely unique.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that big, if it's a QR code, but yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea actually.
I have no idea too. But it's a unique number that has been mapped by the manufacturer, so they would have it. Yeah, it's for the SCTP.
Okay, so please check because there is also GUID in the Fru, so maybe this one can be used here.
Yeah. If the Fru structure already contains this information, then we're good to go. We don't need to use a file. That would be preferred, because then there's no new spec personship needed. We can just use the three things from the PLDM and be done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Oh. Yeah, go ahead.
That's all I had.
Oh. I guess that's all I had as well. So for the ARM one, we said that we are okay with it, and this one we have some work to do on each side, on both sides. Does anyone
question.
else? Yeah.
I have one question. I see what the check for the pool is failed. So do we need to do anything on our side for the correction, or it's some internal stuff?
Yeah, so I had the same issue. I had same weirdo issues. If you look at here, like the linter failed, but it failed on a bunch of other files. Like it failed on boot PLDM and looks like it's just boot PLDM that is failing. Boot README.
So
Oh,
you
and then
can't
you
merge because of other files that were failing and
yeah,
already got merged.
yeah. This has been a problem with the linter. Is that it lints it all. And then DPU system ready has some linter errors. Yeah. And provisioning. So these are all other files. So, but let's look at the ARM one.
I think there are two failures.
Are they this
Probably the same issue.
probably the same list? Yeah,
Yeah.
you have commit issue. And
Yeah, same error.
they're very similar. So, actually, Boris, you're always the one who seems to be able to figure this one out. Do you know how to fix this one?
Depending what we want to do, whether we want to fix it or ignore it.
I'm fine ignoring it, but I guess our linter will be we'll start to ignore it. Okay, so I guess these are errors in files that are checked in, I guess, right? And so
Yeah, we can either fix the existing files or ignore the linter.
yeah.
Like remove this check altogether. Or fix the existing state,
Oh, I hate this.
which
linter.
probably got linter before we had the linter.
Right. I'm all for not doing this linter anymore. It finds the most ridiculous, like, oh, you needed to have one space here and instead of you have 0 or 2, and it's too much.
It keeps documentation consistent, so it's important.
I agree with that, but it's just the issues that it's finding, like, oh, you had a space.
Linters
The-
are always annoying to fix, but we should fix them.
Okay, so we should.
If there are specific things that you think are not needed, but usually there is a configuration to skip certain checks. Like if there is a specific thing that we think is not reasonable.
We already ignore stupid linter rules, so we can add to that list, no problem. Yeah,
Well, that's a good idea. Yeah. Okay, because it looks like it's upset about the tables that are in here, table pipe style. But I don't know if that is causing the tables to look weird, or if it's just upset that you didn't follow the format or not.
Probably both.
Yep. Okay, but I had both of those, and then and do you know how to fix this one? The commit lint. You can go and do I had to do this a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
Go and do
amend on the commit message, and the commit message should be according to the commit lint.
yeah, so you just
Should have either feature or CI or docs or test.
yeah, so just do docs : and then I think it has to be lowercase and then no period at the end. And then I think you should be good to go on the commit lint.
So we need to fix that, right? From our side.
Yeah.
Okay, and you said it should be docs.
Yeah, like look at my submit here. See how it says docs : and then I just keep everything lowercase just to avoid, and then no period at the end.
Okay. We'll fix that.
No need to guess. I shared the commitlint.js.org is having all the rules, so you can just follow that. This is a proper commit messages that we support.
Yeah, and then yeah, I'll find you on Slack and send you. Mark sent me a really easy what is it, interactive screen to go and update your commits. So that's how I fixed it last time. It was really easy. I'll go find that, send it to you.
Okay, and the other error you will fix it, right?
Yeah, and these other ones I guess we'll ignore. Well, yeah, if you go and fix the commit lint, then I will go and fix all these files that are failing the linter and resubmit. So, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go deal with all this stuff. This is important stuff that we don't want to lose. So yeah, I'll go do that.
Okay, perfect. Other than the linters, does anyone have anything else to add before we conclude? Perfect. Then see you next week, I guess. Thank you everyone for coming, and I'll post the meeting summary
Thank you.
on Slack.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.